What's up, Chris?
What's going on, Jay? How are you today?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a Friday afternoon. What could be wrong?
Your bracket probably. I didn't think about this before, but it is March Madness week, and so I'm sure there's lots of folks out there that are really disappointed with Kentucky's performance last night, and who knows what'll happen today. I'm sure there's loads and loads and loads of excitement that'll still be there.
So I got to be honest, I completely forgot all about it and
Oh yeah.
did not do a single bracket. And I did hear earlier today, though, of the millions that have been completed, there's maybe 15 to 18% that are still perfect.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. But before we keep talking, welcome everyone to the On the Rocks podcast, the podcast where we talk about accounting and accounting adjacent information, mostly as it relates to e-commerce, but not only. I'm Chris Gino, and I'm here with Jay Kimmelman, my co-host. Last week, we talked about heading to the tax doctor and working on improving our profession's client experience, because we recognize in some spots it can definitely be poor and has some opportunity to be improved. This week, we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more personal to me, why you should outsource. And more specifically, the value that you can get from engaging an outsourced CFO. We'll talk through what an outsourced CFO is, kind of what outsourcing is in general, what you can get, what a CFO can provide for you, and specific ways that using an outsourced CFO can improve your business. But first, what happened this week? We've already talked a little bit about March Madness, and then that you didn't get the chance to really even involve yourself. Jay,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, that's because you went to the beach.
Yes. First spring break in about 5 years, we thought about going to the beach. And it rained and it was cold.
Oh no.
But no, we had a good time. Got to relax and still spent some time down in the sand and in the pool, and
Yeah.
didn't quite get the boating experience we had hoped for because it was
Sure.
just way too cold. But had a good time and took the family, myself, my wife, my daughter, and a friend of my daughter's, and we went up the east coast of Florida, not too far from St. Augustine, which is where my daughter is planning on going to college next fall.
Yeah.
So on that really cold Tuesday morning, we took a trip up there to St. Augustine, did a little sightseeing. I can't say I got a tour of the college, but I did, got a private tour by the family.
Yeah.
And, we had a good day and had a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. Vacations are important.
Very much so.
Like we talked about a couple episodes ago, that can be really helpful on managing some of that overwhelm that comes from working too hard. So I'm glad you got to do that, especially right after the deadline. So that is definitely wonderful to hear and to hear about.
Yes.
What kinds of stories did you see? I know we talked a little bit about an incident that you had also happen over the weekend. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So Sunday, I got in the Jeep and I noticed that there was a business card sitting on the dashboard, and it was from a tax prep company. And on it said, receive up to $9,800 to $12,000, depending on the number of kids you have, for a tax refund. And it threw me back to when I was doing taxes. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, about how I had set up shop. It might have been last week. I don't remember.
It was last week.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the guy that was working for me, he's like, hey, let's get these signs. Every street corner in Orlando had these signs. Make sure you claim your EITC, get up to X dollars per kid. I'm like, I can't do that. We can't make claims like that as a CPA. It's not ethical. But why can they do it? It's like, yeah, exactly. Why can they do it? So this card, and I started asking my mother, God forbid, my wife, where that came from. And she's like, oh, it's just sitting between the door and the window. I said, they put it in my door jamb of my Jeep? Really?
Oh
And
man.
so, just out of curiosity, I called them up yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I did, yeah.
A development in the story. How exciting.
Yes.
Tell me
So
more.
I called and they're like, yeah, we just paid some kids $20 to put them out. I said, well, you might want to tell them to not put them in the window between the molding and the window, because that
Uh,
molding could break. It's very possible. So yeah, they were apologetic and all that stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
I just it shot me back about 12 years, and it's like yeah. So
Yeah, that's pretty funny. You mentioned how guaranteeing tax refunds is probably unethical, probably
yeah,
not a great thing to do. One interaction that I had online this week was someone was talking about how accountants raising their prices was unethical, and so I wanted
what?
to I wanted to have a conversation about this because it made me really really curious because someone's position was that if you're charging a higher fee but you're giving the same service, you're like cheating someone, which isn't really how fair value works to me. It
Right.
isn't how value is identified, but yeah, this person talked about how in the oil fields, um, like the price of land and price of property, like if you sell it for $1 million versus $2 million, the time that it takes to recover your investment could be like 10 times longer,
Right.
and part of me just was like, from a fair value perspective, like that doesn't matter, because if the person is willing to pay $1 million for the service or for the
Right.
property, like that's what it's worth. And if someone hasn't done enough diligence on what the value of the property should be or what their payback period should be, like that type of thing, that's exactly how fair value works. As long as you're not cheating someone, as long as both parties have had the opportunity to do research and the opportunity to make an evaluation on a transaction, then that is the fair value. You're not cheating someone by charging your market rates. It sounds like in a lot of cases, other accountants might be underpricing, and so people are just getting this extra value. The consumer is getting extra value by being able to pay less because someone hasn't updated their rates in a few years or something like this. Uh,
Yeah, and in the long run, the only person getting cheated on that is the customer,
yeah,
because at some point they are being set up for failure because they are going to expect that cheap rate, and it won't be available.
right.
And then they're going to really think that everybody's trying to rip them off, and that's not the case. It's just, think about salaries in the accounting market
Yeah,
or accounting industry have risen so much over the COVID period, and we have a shortage. We have people leaving. We have fewer people coming into it. The people that are doing taxes are either getting older and
yeah,
aren't the technologically savvy people, or they're just beginning and they don't have the experience, and they're not coming into the industry like they once were. We
right.
probably have 2/3 the number of tax preparers that we had 5 years ago.
Yeah, that feels pretty right, and it's gonna just get worse, is my expectation, or the number's just going to get smaller,
Right.
as I think that it's a long discussed point of the average CPA's age is something like 60 years old or something. Like there are a lot of folks that are not that far from retirement that are those people that are doing those taxes now,
Yeah.
and like you said, at some point, that person who hasn't raised their rates in a long time, they're going to retire out, and either someone is going to acquire that book of business, or they're going to those customers are going to have to find a new preparer, and they are going to be in for a pretty disappointing shock there.
Exactly.
And the other thing that I thought about too is that, like, that those lower rates, they also impact the pipeline because if you're charging those lower rates and that's truly what you think your services are worth, like what you're asking is for your team to do more. And so that means that you have to turn out more. It means that you're piling on these extra hours to either yourself or your teammates. And so you're giving your perpetuating or like exacerbating the accounting shortage issue that we already have. And so I definitely will continue to go back to that point and say, like, no, charging what someone is willing to pay for your tax services is not unethical. that is not how that works.
It completely is not.
Telling someone you can get them a refund of $10,000 if they have 4 kids, though, like that, you definitely shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, and speaking of ethics, and Jay, I didn't put this in the outline here today, but it's come to my mind since we've been talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing that I think would be interesting is I've started doing a little YouTube channel where I'm putting in stories about reviewing 10Ks and finding financial information in those. And I was talking to my wife about it, who is also a CPA, and she mentioned, you need to think about the whether you need to add a little disclaimer at the beginning about whether or not this is investment advice or not. And so when we were starting to talk about ethics and those types of things, it made me think about that too. Of like, man, there are some times, especially in this environment where you're starting to be out there in space more, where I might need to like put a little disclaimer on some of the things that I'm talking about. Of, hey, this isn't investment advice. I'm just talking through financials here. I'm not telling you to buy stuff. You do what you need to do. But it is interesting how much the regulatory environment shapes a lot of what, I mean, obviously the regulatory environment is what tax accountants are doing. Like that is definitely regulation stuff.
Yep.
Audits are all regulation based, and then accounting is based on a set of rules. So like a regulation and the stuff around it, and certainly ethics and those types of things are extremely important in the CPA space.
For sure. Now, you probably could go in and put in a text overlay somewhere in that video. I think you can do it in YouTube after it's already posted, but if not, you can easily do it in whatever editing tool you're currently using, and maybe put that in one of your behind the scenes videos.
This is at the back.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm doing. This behind the scenes video is just about me going back to make sure everyone knows I'm not providing investment advice. Covering my ass.
CYA.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. The last thing that I have here, I already know the answer, but Jay, I love to ask you every week just because it's always such a joyous topic. What's happening on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think we still have TikTok. I think that hasn't been voted on in the Senate yet either.
Shocking.
And nor do we have a tax bill. And I think we are voting today. I'm assuming we're voting today on a budget bill.
Oh, okay.
I understand it passed the House earlier. A temporary bill has passed the House.
Oh, okay. Are we in a government shutdown situation again? I didn't realize.
We actually are, yes.
All right. I didn't realize.
We were right up on the deadline. And apparently there might be a request to have a speaker vote, too.
Oh, how fun. Another one of those.
Another one of those, yeah.
What will we be up to here? The 4th or 5th one this session or something?
Yeah. Bring Boehner back.
Yeah, bring Boehner back. The Triple B, bring Boehner back. I don't know that'd be all that popular either, though.
No, it probably wouldn't be.
Who knows? Who knows?
For sure.
Too funny. All right, so we've got no updates. Obviously, as we've mentioned every single time that we talk about this, when we do have an update, we'll talk through as much of it as we can and help to advise as much as we can with the information that we learn from that update. Obviously, we've talked about this before too, Jay. Our podcast is called On the Rocks. What are you drinking today?
I have a double Makers and Coke today.
Double Makers and Coke. It's so much ice in there that you needed the Yeti. Just keeps it cold. It's a double. It's going to last a lot longer. Yeah, right.
Hopefully, it's going to last the time we're here today.
Today, yeah, right. Hopefully. Today, I am pouring right now a Life in the Clouds. This is another out of the beer drop box that I got. I had one of every one of the ones that came last weekend, and This was my favorite one. So I'm having it again today, and I'll probably have another one after we're done here. So we'll see how that goes. On to today's topic. Today we are talking about advisory services or client accounting services, or what my preferred choice of name is, outsourcing, because that's what it truly is. It's the easiest name. Everybody kind of understands what that means. It goes by a lot of names, but it's all similar stuff. Client accounting services and outsourcing encompass more than just CFO services, so let's make sure that that's extremely clear. So let's first talk about that. What does outsourcing mean? What does that mean? What is it? What is outsourcing? Jay, do you have like a 2-sentence summary of what outsourcing is, or what you'd call client accounting services, or whatever name it goes by these days?
Yeah, it's usually the name du jour, but yeah, it's basically hiring an outside company, a professional services firm like HireRock, to perform your back office functions, whether that is your bookkeeping, accounting, controller services, making sure everything's lined up and tied out, right up to your CFO services, doing some of that advisory work. And so, it's just perfect topic today, because that's exactly what we do.
That is exactly what we do. That's why it's so personal to me. It's literally what I do all of the time. You spend a lot of time in technology and providing technological advice as well. Yep. I really don't do as much of that. I do accounting advisory. That's where I specialize. That's what I do. So this is very, very relevant to me. The one thing that I do want to make clear is that outsourcing can be other things too. Like, you don't just outsource accounting work. You don't just outsource financial advisory work. You can also outsource marketing. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of agencies, like marketing agencies. That's all they are, outsourced marketers. Like, they're an outsourced team to do marketing work for you. You can outsource your operations officers and those types of things as well. When your business isn't so robust as to be able to afford a full-time individual in that role, you can get a lot of the same value from being able to outsource by using a short amount of someone's time instead of all of their time, and paying significantly less. So it can be extremely valuable for you as an entity, and you can still get the advice that you need to make sure that you're making the progress that you need as a business. And so, again, you can outsource all kinds of things. You obviously, like, every single time that people pay legal bills, that's outsourced legal advice. Most people don't think about it that way, but it's the same thing. Because lawyers are very expensive. If you were to try to retain one on your staff as a general counsel or something like that, it would be very expensive. And so it is much more affordable typically to outsource that to a law firm that's able to do the same work, provide you effectively the same value, but be a little bit cheaper than having someone in-house all of the time. And so outsourcing can encompass a whole lot of things. For the purposes of our discussion, we're really just going to focus on outsourcing financial advisory services. And because it is a specific sliver of that pie, and it's also the sliver of the pie that we delve into and do it day to day. So if you're considering outsourcing your CFO service, or if you're a growing business and you need just a little extra help, you as the business owner, you don't know what to do next. You don't know exactly where the business is going, but you're going in a positive direction, or maybe you're going in a slightly negative direction and you want to curb that. Outsourced advisory is perfect for you. But there are some things that you need to do before you do that. And so I think it's important to talk about those things first so that people can have that in the back of their mind as they go through the evaluation of, do I need this? And also understanding what they're getting. And the first one is that you absolutely have to have some good underlying system. You have to understand what your business is doing. You have to understand where the numbers are coming from. You need good quality bookkeeping. And so a CFO can help you find problems. They can help you to correct them. But if all of the information that's being given to that CFO is bad, then it doesn't make any difference. If you don't have good data, and if you don't have data that's coming from the right places, it's just worthless. And that also isn't just associated to the accounting, because obviously it's very important to have good financial records in the accounting space, but that also means marketing data and sales data, volume data, all of that stuff also has to be clean. And because if you don't have clean data in those spaces, your advisor that you're going to utilize is either going to like not be able to give you the right advice, or they're going to give you bad advice because they got bad data. And so having good underlying systems is an extremely important like first layer. the the next thing that can be really important is having a solid foundation of where you want to go, because that advisor is a part-time advisor. Like they have a lot of knowledge, they have a wealth of knowledge that they're going to be able to pull from, because they're likely doing this for several companies like yours. But without understanding exactly what you want, without having some layer of accountability, they're not going to be able to give you what you need. They can give you guidance, but if they don't know what you're trying to do, like if they don't know that you're trying to exit the business in 2 years, like that completely changes the way that they would manage the business for you, or that they'd advise you to manage the business. And so it's really important that you know where you want to go as well. And some of that starts with also like understanding your KPIs, your key performance indicators. What's important to you? What are the things that you want to do as the business owner, so that you can tell that advisor, these are the things that I look at right now. These are the things that I want to be able to achieve going forward. That can be a huge value add to that person, and it's important that it's there, because without it, you're just going to be rudderless. What other things do you think are important to have in place before you reach out to a financial advisor to give you that insight?
No, I think you nailed it. You got to start with the end first. Know where your destination is, because the CFO is going to make the map to get you there. So if you don't do that legwork first, like you said, you're going to be rudderless. There is no map because there's no destination. Yeah. And having the financial data correct and timely is so important. But I mean, I'm just reiterating what you said because you did such a great job. And having the search data, the social data, all of those other components that relate to your operations. If you don't have that in a concise method to help you build those KPIs, it's all going to be worthless. So that's where having like what I like to do is that whole automation side of this business. Yeah. We could pull all that data and make sure it's all into a warehouse for you to use and properly store it, so you can then use those metrics in your calculations and know what your KPIs are, and make sure it's consistent over time. So right. And that is truly what a CAS firm does. They will do the accounting and the bookkeeping. They will work with you to automate work processes and workflows. They will work with you on your goals and objectives and build that roadmap to get you there. And then we all will celebrate with you when you start achieving them. So that's what it's all about. I mean, you did a great job of bringing that all to light.
Yeah, no, and I think you described that really well too. As the firms like ours that exist that are there to give you this advisory service at the end. Like they can also help you get to where you can get to that point too. And I do think that's an important thing to think about, is that people that you partner with along the way are going to be really important in helping to make your business as successful as you can. I
think what you said there, though, partner with, and that truly is the type of relationship. We are a partner in your business, where we are a part of your team. We are not, that company over there, or that distributed group throughout the country. We are all part of your team, working with one goal in mind, which is to deliver what your objectives are.
Yeah, and that feeds into the same point that I was making, and I didn't really talk about it, but it's also important that you give that team full access to what's going on. Because if all of a sudden an invoice comes in from a vendor that no one was expecting, then it didn't make it into the cash flow model, and it didn't make it into, it wouldn't have been accrued for, maybe, if it needed to have been, because nobody was expecting it, because you as the business owner made a decision without telling anyone, and it came up after the fact. Like that that can be extremely frustrating, and that's the exact type of thing that can cause problems along the way. So open and clear communication
Right.
is also a very critical component of any type of outsourced relationship, for
For
sure.
sure.
And so as we dive in a little bit to exactly what an outsourced CFO does, I think of a few different categories of stuff. There's the stuff that every CFO should probably be doing for you. There's some like extra kind of cool stuff that maybe you wouldn't get from a CFO, but you might be able to get from the right person or the person with the right set of experience. And then there's some like very, very niche, very specific things that CFOs can do for you too, where experience and the opportunities of doing things several times over, they're narrow. That doesn't happen a lot, but this person can give you a lot of value if you do run into these types of situations. And so I wanted to first talk about what I call the nuts and bolts. So that's the stuff that if you're not getting from your CFO, you're probably like not getting what you need. And that starts with first just high level financial oversight. And so in most businesses, the person who's responsible for reviewing financials and preparing financials is a controller. They're the first person who's going to be able to capture any problems that are in the financials, but the CFO is going to look at those as well. And if there are trends or disturbing trends or difficult things that have happened in the past or that look like they may be happening in the future, a good quality seasoned CFO is going to be able to spot those things for you and bring them to your attention. Another thing that most any CFO that you engage with is going to be able to provide you some type of cash flow forecasting. A lot of that does depend a lot on what kind of system you're using and where that information can be pulled from. And there are lots of tools out there that can exist to help advisors in this space to do that cash flow modeling. But that helps you as the business owner understand like how much cash do you expect to need? How much cash are you expecting to come in? How much cash can you spend on your vacation because you can give yourself a distribution? Like how much are you going to have to pay in taxes? Like this is all that cash flow forecasting provides loads of value to you as the business owner because you can now understand where you need to spend cash. And the biggest problem that small business owners run into is cash flow management. And so if you do like run out of cash, or if you have other cash related issues, right, that you need to have been doing some forecasting and some evaluation of where you stand in your cash position. Another thing that a CFO advisor is going to be able to provide for you is not just cash flow forecasting, but cash flow analysis. And so what I mean by that is how you're using your cash. Like, what are you doing with the cash? Do you have loads and loads of leftover cash that you need to be investing somewhere to get a little extra return? Does your cash flow forecast look like you're going to need to spend $200,000 in a few weeks, and so you can't like stop? You can't stop using that money. Like you can't hook that money up in like buying a business or something like that. But you need it to be available, or does that or can you spend that cash on inventory, or have you spent too much of that cash on inventory? Is it stuck somewhere now where you need to sell through some inventory to be able to build back some cash because you have too much inventory on hand?
Or throw in there, are you going to need a line of credit to have working capital to buy the inventory?
That's right.
There's a lot of different factors at play there.
Right, going into the future, right? You're about to run out of cash. What do you do now? That's exactly a thing that you can think about, and that's a thing that a good CFO is going to be able to bring to your attention. Is did you know that your SBA loan it was adjustable rate, so it's 10% right now? It might be time to find a different funding source. Like that, those are the types of things that a good quality CFO is going to be able to provide for you. One thing that I think is one of the biggest things that you'll get from a CFO, especially somebody who's coming into a situation where profitability is starting to wane, you're starting to see a little slowdown. Maybe there's some recessionary things out in the marketplace, and you just want to know, like, where are your overages? Where's your bloat? A CFO, a good quality CFO, is going to be able to give you financial guidance on where to cut those costs and what the reasons are for those types of cost overruns or cost things like that, right? So they're going to be able to help you to focus on the strategy that's going to allow you to be successful going forward. And if you haven't already, a good quality CFO is going to be both able to identify for you and then track for you good quality KPIs. So they're going to know about your business well enough that they can say, hey, here's the things that I'm going to look at every month, every week, so that I can tell you, like, here's the best strategy for us as a business going forward. What other things do you think are in the nuts and bolts, Jay? What did I miss?
Well, I really think that if they're identifying, tracking KPIs, they'll probably build out a dashboard for you, and you
Right.
could be tracking that, based on your traffic flows and things along those
Yep.
lines on a daily basis. I know some businesses I've worked at, they track some of those items on the hourly basis. They want to know the volume of store visitors. They want to know the foot
Yeah.
traffic coming in the doors. They want to know, the number of transactions each register is having throughout the day. And they track it every day, and they know. I mean, if you're in retail, you're using that to staff and have a lot of other things. So
That's exactly
it's
what I was about to
really,
say.
really important. So
Yeah, and in the retail business, it's not just important; it's critical because it helps you to identify, like, should I close at 9?
Yep.
What time? Like, do I need 5 servers here at or 5 associates here at 8 p.m. Like what? Like
Right.
it does help with that because you're going to pay what you're going to pay for product, right? But the place where you have flexibility is in that staffing, and so that extra insight of even hourly based or even half hourly based. We looked at it a long time ago when I worked at Chick-fil-A. The reports always ran on half hours, so you could see exactly what was happening on a half hour basis, which is pretty wild. So Jay, we've run into the time where I thought that this might happen. If you can hear my dog in the background, that's because the people are here cleaning their house today, and they started the vacuum. So, Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about some other CFO roles or CFO things that they may be doing for a minute here, or while I can calm my dog down?
Oh, for sure. So, and some of these items are things that Chris calls the good stuff. And, where I sit in the e-commerce world, we're always looking at the product profitability. Is that product, is it a loser? Are you making the proper margin on it? Is it sitting in the warehouse too long? Things like that. And, they're going to look at that on a product by product basis, and they're going to dig deeper into those sales systems, whether it's your inventory or your sales system, whatever your system of record is for that type of data. And they're going to examine all those records and probably be able to go back as far as you've been keeping those records to see sales volumes and how long, what kind of inventory turns you have, how long it's been there, and getting good information about the products and giving you intel on, okay, maybe this product might need a facelift or something. Maybe it's time to get a new version of it, a different color, different size, things along those lines, and get a refresh on it. And, maybe it's time to do a little A/B testing on the products.
That's right.
So they will be able to provide a lot of intel regarding that. They'll also be able to look at your product pricing and tell you, if you were to raise your pricing on a specific item, what would be the risk of doing so and what would be the reward for doing so. And, you could try doing it in specific markets and see how it impacts it. So there are a lot of different factors at play that a outsourced CFO can be looking at those products.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been able to do on a couple projects that I've been on is truly looking at not just the landed cost of products, because a lot of systems should be able to help you do that, but also the other costs that go into that product as well. And so that can be things like your ad budget, like how much of your ad budget should be focused on those different products. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately when you look at your margin, that's the things that are going into the direct costs of those products. Like How much does your team that manages your inventory, how much are they costing? They're not always captured as landed costs, but they're definitely a cost of doing business, and they're a cost of supporting those products. And so, like Jay talked about, where your product is staying in the warehouse too long or something like that, it may be that they may need more costs associated with them, which means you may need to charge a higher price to get the same margin. So there can be a lot of value in doing an analysis of that nature for sure.
And you also want to look at, where that product is being stored. Because if it's in a third-party logistics warehouse versus an Amazon warehouse, Amazon's fees has skyrocketed for storage. And, you look at their fulfillment and storage costs, it's up about 30% now. So you've got to weigh all of that out versus, have them being Amazon fulfill that product, or do you want to start doing it yourself and weigh that out? So, there are a lot of advantages to doing that.
Well, yeah, and not just that either. Another thing that can be really valuable is not just which warehouse should we sell this from, or should we keep this at, but also like, where in the world should we sell this?
Right.
Like, do the people in the UK, do they want this product? Does it have traction there? Is this a thing that even matters to that society, right? Do they even care about this at all? And identifying not just how you're doing business or what products you're selling, but where you're selling them can be a very important and valuable function that a good quality advisor can give to you as well.
Yeah, last year we were doing a technology update for a client, and they were selling in 12 different Amazon markets, and in 4 of them their ad spend was higher than their sales.
Yeah, and it doesn't take very long for a good quality advisor to be like, this is a problem.
Yep.
And so even if the intention is to build out market by doing some of that ad spend, knowing that and being able to understand like how long do we want to run this is an important factor as well.
Right. And you probably have a runway that you want to do it to test the market and see if it takes off. But after 6 months, you got to cut the cord at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
One other thing that I think of as the good stuff is kind of what we talked about before, Jay. This is a lot of what you're doing, and that is improving the control structure and really the underlying automation. So making the business more efficient. That allows everyone on the team to be able to use their time in a way that's more effective in growing the brand, in improving the brand, or improving the business instead. And so instead of spending all of this time on inputting data or manipulating forms, if you can create automations that can do all of that for you, then you're able to use your time and your people's time in a way that can be so much more powerful to you as a business owner. And that is a thing that someone with some experience is going to be able to identify for you. Jay, do you have any like awesome examples of that?
I mean, and I might have talked about this in the past, but I mean, I always go back to my own warehouse where I was, I talked about it, talking about the trips to the warehouse. It's like, we can't do 100 laps around the warehouse for 100 orders. It's just completely inefficient. So, we just quickly go in there, make a new report. We can know exactly what we got to pull in the morning, what we got to pull in the afternoon. We pull it twice a day. We then package it and ship it out. And, we went from having 25% of our shipments left over to ship the next day to having much greater capacity every day. So we were able to start shipping quicker and getting things out the door. And by doing so, clients see it and they expect it. And then when you don't achieve things like that, they're like, hey, what's going on over there? So, we got to be paying attention to that. And, especially, if you are doing your own fulfillment within an Amazon ecosystem, they are monitoring how long it's taken to get those orders out. And you will be notified if you're running late. Yep. So you got to be paying attention to things like that. That's just one of the things. It's just being mindful of process and what is being done, and applying technology to it. That's
Absolutely.
what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and there's no question. Like if you think about, I don't know, somebody who's maintaining an order log in an Excel file, right? Where they're putting in how much inventory do we have? What's our reorder point? Let me do some math. They gotta like pull data from 3 or 4 different
Yeah.
sources just to build the file, and then they have to analyze the file, and then make a decision on when to order again. Like there can be there's always, we've talked about this several times, right? There's opportunities for that to go wrong. There's
Yeah.
opportunities for the wrong information to get in there, and then like you just described, if you do that, if you spend all of this time doing something, that may mean that you can't do it as quickly as you want to. And
Yeah.
so, there's no question that finding those automations, being able to like connect everything together easy and pull that information. One thing that one of the clients that I work with, one of the things that they spent a lot of time working on was doing shipping audits of their fulfillment partner, their third party
Mm-hmm.
partner, and so they'd be shipping stuff from one warehouse when the other one was closer. Like there's things like that happen all of the time. But if your reporting that you're getting from that partner is not very good, or if you have to manipulate it and match it up with Shopify using like 4 different files, like
Yeah.
that can take forever.
For sure.
And so identifying a way to automate that and work together with the system to highlight better and more effectively like where those problems could potentially be, can be like a huge value add just from
Huge.
making a small automation.
Yep.
You can save so much time for your team, just by being thoughtful about what you automate. um, what other things are those higher level services that maybe aren't just like the basics, but are a little bit more, a little bit more, that we haven't talked about already, Jay?
Uh, Budgeting,
Oh,
forecasting.
I
Yeah.
did forget to put that on the list. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that. Budgeting is a huge thing.
It's
Um,
huge.
Huge. It's huge. And the reason why budgeting is huge is because of a lot of the things that we've already talked about, especially if you're setting goals and you have KPIs and indicators that you want to get to. You have to be able to set a budget so that you know that you're making progress toward that. If you're looking to cut costs, you need to be able to budget for that, to say this is what we have to spend on this type of thing, so that you can analyze, are we doing that? What is the extra stuff that we're spending on? What are we not spending on that we should be, that's going to make us like that much better? Um, the budgeting is a huge add-on value. And actually, I kind of think I probably should have put that in the nuts and bolts, because a financial advisor that's not providing you with like some type of budget summary, some type of budgeting idea, concept, like they're probably not doing you as much service as you'd like.
Yeah, and the old adage is if you're not tracking it, you can't measure it.
Well,
So
yeah, there's no question that
you've
that's
got to
true.
lay that out and be able to do that. And I worked for a company that maintained a budget, and then they had a forecast and a plan and an updated plan.
Mm.
I mean, and we were reporting against 5 or 6 different plans at one point in time.
No,
And it's
no.
like, okay, at what point do we throw that original budget out and we just re-forecast it?
Budget 5.0.
uh, Chrissy's noticed that your
Yeah.
dog is there, and Callie's
I
back
know.
behind me. She's just pacing behind me. And,
Yep.
and here, everybody is gone. My wife's in North Carolina.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law and niece are on their way to Atlanta for a color guard competition. And Abby is at dance and going to meet her grandma tonight. So I am home alone. And unfortunately, Callie wants some attention. And she's going to have to wait another 15 minutes. Yes.
And my dog he's very interested in the vacuum cleaner again. They've come up the stairs, I think. So he's
Yeah.
he's
Yeah. So, we're talking about budgets. At one point, I worked for a healthcare entity, and this was my second healthcare company I was working on. The budgets were like 40 tabs in Excel. And basically, you had to turn recalc off, and you made your changes, and then you hit the button, hit F9 to recalc, and you step back, and you gave it a good 45 seconds to a minute for it to calculate.
Yeah,
and
no,
yeah, they were animals. I remember doing those for 3 years.
Yeah, and that's an opportunity for automation if I've ever heard of one. For sure.
Oh yeah.
So again, improving control structure, like identifying areas where there's weaknesses in control, especially someone like me that's from an audit background that's thinking about that stuff. Like that's always top of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And of what kind of risks do we have here? What are the checks and balances that need to be in place to make sure that we're not exposed to something that we don't want to be? And then like you talked about, being able to improve these budgetings, updating these. Yeah, yuck. Those are all the good stuff that good quality advisors can provide for you.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing that I wanted to talk about are what I'll call the specific stuff. And so these things, they may not be valuable to you every day. They may not be valuable to you except for one time ever. But there are things that a good quality CFO is going to be able to help you with. And the first one of those is kind of one we talked about already. That's coordinating with lenders or coordinating with private equity for funding, right? A well-seasoned, well-connected financial advisor is going to be able to tell you that you need a line of credit, right? You need to go get some kind of funding so you can so you can grow the way that you need to grow, so that you can purchase this inventory that you're going to be able to sell. Like they're going to also have connections for you that can help you to do that in an economical way for you, right? So they're going to make sure that they're thinking about why you're doing that, why you're taking out that type of funding, and then also make sure that it's being done in a way that makes the most sense for the business. Another very specific thing is exit strategy planning. So, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Exit strategy planning. So that's if you want to sell the business, right? You're getting older, you want to get out. You're getting younger, and you're just bored with it. Like, or you've got something that you would rather spend your time and money on than being fully integrated into a business, right? We talked about that before. That being an e-com owner takes a lot of effort. You're overseeing a lot of activity. You're probably overseeing a pretty reasonable sized team, and it can take a lot out of you. And you may not want to do that for a really long time. And so a good financial advisor is going to be able to find partners to help you to sell that business. They're going to make sure that your financial records are in a good shape to be able to be presented to investors or potential investors, to make sure that you're ready for that next step. That's preparing for anything like that, and especially if you were significantly bigger and considering like going public or something like that, which again, most of our clients are not going to be anywhere near that for a while, but the effort that goes into that is substantial. And so even the effort that goes into private equity funding is not nothing. Like it takes a while, and it also takes a long time for those records to now like be reflected properly, because you may have been keeping cash basis records 2 years ago or last year, and you were like, I want to like get my biggest stake out of this business so that I can step away. But you're not going to be able to do that right away, because you need to build a history of good records that are investor quality. And so a good financial advisor is going to be able to help you do that, and they're going to be able to help connect you to the right people to assist you in exiting. And then I'm sure that as I was putting together this outline, I'm sure I didn't think about something. What other like specific things could a good quality CFO do for you, Jay?
So, especially when we're talking about exit strategies, excuse me, they can probably also help minimize some of the tax exposure you're going to have there. And if they
Yep.
can't do it directly, I'm sure they have somebody in their network that can. Like, with us, we have Chris on the client advisory side, on the accounting side, and I am currently with the tax team working on that, and I've been doing tax planning and tax advisory for years as well
Yep.
as the whole technology side that myself, Christy, and Liz work on. So,
Yeah.
we have a well-rounded team, so we don't
Right.
have to be able to network for that. But if you've come across a CFO for hire, they probably have a network that they reach out to help
Absolutely.
with things like that. So they will help you make sure that you are paying your fair share of tax, but not paying more than your fair share.
Yeah, and that I actually did think of that and didn't put it on on this list because I wasn't sure how that felt. But I'm glad that you mentioned it because
Yeah.
I do think it's true that that when you think about what a CFO is intended to do for you, they're they're protecting your money historically and trying to make sure that your money is going to the best output going forward. And tax planning is a really important part of that. Because if you haven't planned properly and more than enough of your share is going to tax, then your CFO has probably failed you to some degree if you're overspending on taxes. So that is definitely a really good point to make and a really good thing to be aware of as you're evaluating what a CFO can bring to you, or what
Most
a
definitely.
outsourced team can bring to you. If you think about someone like IROC, what other things have we not talked about that sound good?
Well, here's a question for you. Are CFOs the right folk to talk and advise on recommendations on internal controls?
Yes.
It's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, and I think that the what I would say is yes, because oftentimes, especially in a relatively small business, right, the CFO is also the person who oversees risk. They're like the risk manager, and so it's just exactly like I just talked about, right? The CFO is the person who's responsible for making sure that the business is spending money in the right way. And so if the CFO is not the person who is taking care that that money is not going out of your pockets to your internal accountant or something like that, if they're not responsible for making sure that controls are in place there, then they're probably missing. I mean, you should be doing that, and it's an extremely important facet of the business, right? The controller is the person the controller they're responsible for those records in the time, and they're responsible for building out that control environment. But if they miss something, ultimately that does become the CFO's responsibility.
Right.
And the controller they're overseeing internal controls in the accounting system, right? So your basic financial internal controls. But
Right.
there are internal controls that are outside of that. And so procurement or something like that. There should be controls around procurement, and it's not going to be the controller who's going to oversee that process. It's going to be the CEO or CFO or the COO. And those people need to be having good quality conversations together to make sure that all of those potential risks are being weighed. And so yeah, to your question, Christy, I think CFOs are a great place. They may outsource that to their team, but they're a great place to be the people who start to identify problems and understand that they need to be fixed. They may not be the people who are responsible for fixing the problem, but they definitely should have oversight in identifying the problem. Jay,
Yeah.
do you disagree, or what do you think?
No, I agree, and I'm going back to my time when I was at Siemens, when
Yep.
and we've joked about this. The entire balance sheet was immaterial to the audit,
Yeah.
yet they still spent a week there doing it. But having the CFO in charge, like you said, of that process, there are other departments, and at a small unit like I was in, we had 4 or 5 people that made up an audit committee. that it wasn't. We weren't actually picking an auditor or anything, but they were responsible for replying to the internal audit reports.
Sure.
And they set the controls, and they all reported to the CEO, and ultimately it was his responsibility to the division head, but the financial side lays on the CFO, the purchasing lies on the COO. It's just how it depends on the size of your organization, because in a lot of cases the owner is all of them at some point.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Right. And so that ties up really, really well with that. You as the business owner, you need to be advising that CFO of exactly what you want them to do, and which of these hats you want to take off. Because and to that, right, large public companies, there are two people that are required to sign the 10K filings. There are two people that are required to say our controller environment is good. That's the CEO and the CFO. And so ultimately that responsibility does fall to the CFO. But they need to be working hand in hand with that other partner, which is often and certainly in our clients is the business owner, the main operating individual, the CEO, that type of person. So I think that's really accurate insight. What other value can you get from outsourcing your CFO role, Jay? What other things should we be talking about today?
So, one thing that we've talked about what they do, but you are going to pay a what's a good term for this? A market rate, or maybe an over market rate, to have a fractional CFO. And at first, it might seem like it's really high. But when you start getting into it, you're going to start noticing that, oh, wait, all of these things that we're talking about, we're paying for it. We're paying those fees based on everything we're saving over time. So when you hire a good CFO or a fractional CFO or an outsourced CFO, premium, yes, that's what I was looking for. You're going to pay a premium. But when you hire somebody or a team, you are going to get the value in what they are returning to you. And you should see that paid for over time. So, you can't look at it as, oh, wow, I can't afford to pay this today. You're paying this today to achieve results tomorrow. And by the time you're done, you will have an ROI on that.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely true. But I also think it's important to consider what it would take to have a full-time CFO.
True.
Because you're not paying a premium on that. And you rarely would. Because you're going to pay less than you would if you had a full-time CFO. So you're actually getting significant savings in that respect. But you're right. Like you're
going to perceive you're paying a lot, but when you actually see what a full-time CFO is, and you take the salary, the benefits, all and add all that up, well, you might not be able to afford that at that point in time.
Right.
But you can hire that fractional. And
absolutely, and it's a good stepping point as well for your business, right? Because you will get to a point where your business needs that extra insight, and you will, and unless you've been extremely fortunate, you're very unlikely to skip that layer and go straight to I want a full-time CFO, because those full-time CFOs can be extremely costly, and then like you're talking about, Jay, if you start to add on benefits and everything else, it can just be. It can be a lot, but those people, there's a reason why those people get paid that much,
right?
And that's exactly the reason why you should understand that a premium for a CFO quality individual, even if it's just someone who's fractional.
And as you're bringing that person in, you might not have the work to keep them occupied on a full-time basis.
Right. Exactly.
Eventually, you'll get there because. If they're there, they're going to find ways to get themselves into it and keep themselves busy. But it's going to take a little bit of time. Start out, go into it with what you need. And a lot of times you might not know what you need, but reach out to somebody that can give you some insights about that.
Of both what you need and how to deliver it to you.
Exactly.
And that is the value of the fractional CFO. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Perfect bow. Perfect bow. Love it. Love it. So, Bud last. What Jay, what are you doing this weekend?
Funny you should ask. Not a lot.
That seems like a great weekend.
Yes. The wife is gone.
Oh no.
Abby, like I said, Abby's gone tonight. So I got the evening tonight. I'm going to be making some pizza dough tonight for the weekend.
There you go.
I am I'm probably going to go for a walk. I can tell the sun's out again. So
Yeah, you can
take
see
Callie
it's
out for a
going
walk
back and
now.
forth here off my face. So,
Yeah.
I
And-
know. Looking forward to walking tonight.
You know, we got some NASCAR racing down in Texas, in COTA.
Oh, are we here?
In Austin, yeah.
Wait. Oh, at Road America?
No, at COTA in Austin.
At COTA.
Circuit of Americas.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the circuit. Excuse
Yeah.
me. Wrong name of the course. Wrong America
Right.
course.
Yeah.
What a fun course.
Yeah. So, hoping to check out some of that this weekend and see how that goes. And you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna catch up on a few things. You know that I have nobody and nothing here to pull my attention away. So I'm gonna see what I can get into. Maybe build an automation or something.
There you go. That'll be fun. Find a way to sell it. Absolutely. I also don't have any weekend plans, but that makes it a good weekend. I'll probably spend more time than I'm willing to admit, like refreshing my phone on basketball scores to try to see how the bracket's doing. Even though it won't matter, like the result is going to be the same. but it's fun to watch and play along in the moment to see how it's going. But otherwise, it sets up to be a pretty casual weekend over here as well.
Yeah.
Anything big expected next week? Do we have any? We don't have any big deadlines or anything. It sounds like maybe we'll get the budget bill or something, but
Yeah.
not much
Hopefully.
else. Hopefully.
Yeah.
No.
No, I mean we're heading into the end of March, which means we have more than 15 days, but from next weekend at this time, we'll have 15 days to get our 1040s done. So we're going to be doing a lot of estimate preparations.
Yeah.
And getting that set up to make those payments with those extensions.
Nice. Well, wonderful. Looking forward to next week. Who knows what we'll talk about then.
Oh,
but
for
Jay,
sure.
as always, thank you for chatting with me today. To the viewers out there, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody.